All right, let's get into it. The name Erwin Schrödinger. Yeah, you're probably thinking about a cat in a box, right? The one that's both dead and alive at the same time. But the man behind that famous thought experiment, well, he lived a life that was just as packed with contradictions. It's an incredible story of genius, a really, really bad miscalculation, and a dramatic escape from the heart of the Nazi Reich. So get this. These are Schrödinger's own words from 1928. He thought England was, and I quote, watered down and dispassionate. Basically, he found it stuffy, boring, and restrictive. It's a fascinating and honestly a deeply ironic place to start because just 5 years after he wrote this, that very same country would become his only safe haven. Okay, so let's set the scene. The year is 1933. Europe is, teetering on the edge of disaster. But Erwin Schrödinger has found a safe harbor. He's tucked away in the historic, peaceful halls of Oxford University. I mean, just try to imagine the contrast. While political chaos and actual violence were ramping up in Germany, Schrödinger was stepping into this idyllic world. Oxford wasn't just another job for him. It was a genuine sanctuary, a place where intellectual life could just carry on, totally untouched by the darkness that was spreading across the continent. The life he walked into was almost like something out of the Middle Ages, with all its traditions. You gotta picture it. Candlelit dinners, choirs singing grace from a gallery, and even this playful fruit-passing game with another scientist, John Eccles. It was a world away from the brawling on the streets of Berlin. So Schrödinger is settling into this comfortable, super prestigious life. He's safe, he's secure, and then, just a few weeks into his new gig, a telegram shows up. And this single telegram is about to launch his status to the absolute peak of the scientific world. Boom, he'd won the Nobel Prize in physics. He shared it with Paul Dirac for, and this is the official line, the discovery of new productive forms of atomic theory. So right there in his sanctuary at Oxford, Schrödinger was being celebrated with the highest honor in all of science. But here's the thing. While Schrödinger was popping champagne in Oxford, the intellectual world he had just managed to escape was being systematically torn apart. Just look at how fast this all happened. In a matter of months, Germany completely transformed. Hitler grabs dictatorial power, openly declares a war on Jewish intellectuals, and by May, they're throwing books by people like Einstein onto massive bonfires. This wasn't just some political shift, it was an all-out assault on the very idea of free thought. And the result of all this? A mass exodus. A brain drain like the world had never seen. Schrödinger's own friend and colleague from Berlin, Albert Einstein, had his apartment raided by the new regime. He immediately renounced his citizenship and vowed never to set foot in Germany again. The greatest minds of a generation were literally running for their lives. And Schrödinger had escaped all of it. He was safe, he was celebrated, a Nobel laureate. Which is what makes the thing he did next so completely and utterly baffling. He decides to leave. He gives up the total safety of Oxford to take a job in Graz, Austria. An Austria, mind you, that was falling more and more under Nazi influence every single day. So why? Why would a man who had seen the writing on the wall, who had found the perfect escape hatch, decide to walk right back towards the fire? And hey, it wasn't just hindsight. Even his wife, Annie, knew it was a huge risk at the time. She later wrote that their friends shook their heads at the decision. I mean, they were willingly moving from a place of absolute safety to one of deep and growing danger. Let's just break this choice down because it's pretty stark. On one side, you have Oxford, a safe haven, a prestigious fellowship, total security. On the other side, Graz, a city already known as a Styrian Nazi stronghold, but it'd offer a better salary and that pull of being back in his homeland. It was a massive gamble that was about to go spectacularly wrong. And that brings us right to the climax of the story. Schrödinger's profound miscalculation is about to collide head-on with history, and it's going to force him into a desperate, nail-biting flight for his life. March 1938. The trap snaps shut. It's the Anschluss. Germany officially annexes Austria. And in Schrödinger's new hometown of Graz, Hitler isn't met with resistance. Oh no. He's welcomed with what the New York Times at the time called a hurricane of hails. The storm he had run from had now swallowed him whole. And now we get to the most controversial moment of his entire life. Terrified for his safety, Schrödinger writes a letter to the press. It's a confession pledging his loyalty to Hitler and the new regime. He even urged other Austrians to support the Anschluss. He would later call it an act of gross hypocrisy, but it was a moment of moral compromise that would stain his reputation forever. But that letter, it wasn't enough to save him. A friendly official quietly warns him that his passport is about to be confiscated. The escape is frantic. It's immediate. He and Annie grab a single suitcase and jump on a train to Italy. They have no money, so from Rome, they call the great physicist Enrico Fermi for a loan. Then, from the safety of Vatican City, Schrödinger writes this desperate plea to Ireland's leader, Eamon de Valera, who, and this is just amazing, arranges for their immediate rescue and safe passage. So, Schrödinger made it out. He survived. He found a new home in Dublin, where he actually founded an important institute and wrote his incredibly influential book, What is Life? But his story, it leaves us with a much, much more complicated picture of the man. Just look at these two sides of the coin. On one hand, you have the scientific giant. His work is literally the bedrock of quantum mechanics, and it even helped inspire the discovery of DNA's structure. But on the other hand, you have a man who published a letter supporting Hitler, was described by his colleagues as difficult and even ruthless, and was well known for his complicated, often irresponsible personal life. And this stuff, it wasn't forgotten by his peers. The physicist Rudolf Peilers, who was another refugee from the Nazis, argued against giving Schrödinger a prestigious honor later in life. He said that letter wasn't just silly, but a serious moral failing for someone of his stature. It really shows you how deeply his actions were felt by the people who had also lost everything. And yet, in a strange twist of fate, the story comes right back to where it all began. Today, at the Oxford Science Park, managed by the very same Magdalen College that gave him refuge all those years ago, there now stands the Schrödinger building. The sanctuary he chose to abandon now proudly bears his name. So, that leaves us with a pretty big question, doesn't it? His science absolutely changed the world, but his personal choices, they were deeply flawed. How do we remember a figure like Schrödinger, whose brilliance was maybe matched only by his complexity, and whose life forces us to grapple with that tangled relationship between genius, character, and the unforgiving pressures of history?